Edie, I have a question.
Yeah, Pask?
The lady in that last episode was pretty hardcore, as the Earthlings say.
Yeah, she definitely was.
So how do you even top that for this episode?
I got it. How about an entire group of hardcore ladies, flying over their enemies with their engines off in the cover of night, braving the cold and frostbite and gunfire, just because they really wanted to blow shit up and ruin a Nazi's day.
Were they also Russian like the last one?
Of course they were Russian. I'm Vibby, and on this episode of A Space Alien Explains, the Night Witches. Today's fun fact, forgotten by most history teachers: Nazis have a fear of witches. Although women were initially barred from combat on the front lines in World War II, Colonel Marina Raskova was set to change all that. Raskova was a talented pilot, known in her country as the Russian Amelia Earhart. She had been receiving letters from many women who wanted to join the war effort, but at the time they could only serve in support roles. Raskova lobbied to find ways for women to be more active in the war, maybe even allow them to participate in combat. In October of 1941, Raskova got her wish. She was ordered to establish a trio of all-female Air Force units. Out of the three, only the 588th Night Bomber Regiment remained a girls-only club. But to the Nazis, the 588th was the most fearsome. Nazis are afraid of little girls, pass it on. The 588th flew rickety planes made only of plywood and canvas, more suited for dusting crops rather than combat. They were open cockpit and provided pretty much no armor or protection against the weather, which absolutely sucks if you're flying a plane in the Russian winter. There was also a very strict weight limit, otherwise the planes wouldn't get off the ground. They could only carry 2 pilots and 2 bombs. The weight limit did not allow for parachutes. Of course, they could have carried 1 bomb and a couple parachutes instead, but who needs a goddamn parachute when you can have more bombs? The weight limit also made it impossible to carry radios or radar equipment to help with navigation. So they had to do it old school style with maps, compasses, pencils, stopwatches, flashlights, and rulers. The planes had to fly at lower altitudes because of the weight, but it also made them easier to spot. So the cover of night was very important to their missions. As the planes approached the target, they'd go on stealth mode, shutting off the engines and leaving the craft to glide on air currents. And even after all that, sometimes the bombs wouldn't release, so one of the pilots would have to climb onto the wings of the plane while in mid-air and push the bomb out by hand, while at the same time a bunch of Nazis on the ground and in the air are trying to shoot them down. Very brave and very crazy. Exactly how I like it. The 588's planes were too small to show up on radar, and since they never used radios, radio locators couldn't pick them up either. They would essentially just appear out of nowhere, and by the time you saw them, you were dead. The only warning the Nazis ever had were the whooshing sounds the planes made when they were already sailing overhead. The sound reminded them of broomsticks, so they gave the 588th bombers the nickname Nachthexen, Night Witches. The Nazis hated and feared them so much, anyone who could shoot down a witch was instantly awarded an Iron Cross. They were super scared of witches, but shooting them down turned out to be harder than it looked. Because their planes were tiny, they were more agile and could outmaneuver most Nazi aircraft. Since the planes could carry so little, the 588's pilots would have to drop their payload, return to base, reload, and then leave again to do another bombing. These ladies would often have to fly 8 or more missions in one night. They became the most highly decorated unit in the Soviet Air Force at the time. In all, the Night Witches dropped 23,000 tons of munitions and flown 30,000 raids by the war's end. Meanwhile, the Nazis were completely unable to comprehend why these women were so deadly, and just assumed the Soviets were drugging them so they'd have the night vision of a cat. I'm serious. Although they faced harassment and criticism from their male counterparts, the 588th saw it important to embrace femininity. The pencils they used to mark their maps was also used as eyeliner or lip color, and they often decorated their planes with flowers. They'd do some sewing in their downtime, and sing and dance on the airfield as they waited for the sun to set. And when darkness came, they'd strap on their helmets, hop in a plane, and blow a Nazi encampment up sky high. And yes, They were badass enough to get a heavy metal song written about them. Let's take something from Russia. If a woman tells you she wants to wreck some Nazis, you should probably just let her do it. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is unfortunately the last video for Women's History Month, but I got some cool stuff planned for April that I'm very excited to start working on. Anyway, this week's featured fan art is by Stevie Naranjo YT on Twitter. Link to the artist page is in the description, and I hope I didn't butcher that name too badly. And here's some comments from the last video. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by dropping a like and hitting that subscribe button. I also take art and animation commissions, and I do have a Ko-Fi page as well. If you buy me a coffee through there, I'll make you a sketch as a way of saying thank you. Links to all that, as well as links to my social media, are in the description. Again, thank you for watching.
And I'll see you real soon.